You're overthinking. That's what my wife said 3 hours before I watched another man kiss her under the security camera above our garage. The footage was grainy, washed in pale floodlight and midnight shadows, but not blurry enough to hide the truth. I remember staring at the screen in that cheap motel room off Interstate 45 with my hand wrapped around a cup of stale coffee that had already gone cold. The digital timestamp blinked in the corner. 2:13 a.m. Melissa stepped out of her silver Lexus first, heels clicking against the concrete, one hand brushing her hair back like she didn't have a care left in the world. Then he appeared beside her. Ryan Brooks, 6'2", polished smile, real estate developer, the kind of guy who always looked like he belonged in expensive whiskey commercials. He leaned against the garage frame like he'd done it before, like he knew the house, like he knew my wife. And then she kissed him. Calm, familiar, no hesitation. Not the kind of kiss born from bad decisions or too much wine. This looked practiced, comfortable, the kind of kiss that only happens after 100 others no one sees. Funny thing is, 6 months earlier, I would have laughed at the idea of spying on my own marriage. I'm Ethan Carter, 43 years old, systems engineer, born and raised outside Dallas, Texas. I spent most of my adult life believing problems had logical explanations. Servers fail. Code breaks. Circuits overload. Everything has a cause if you look hard enough. Marriage was supposed to work the same way. Melissa and I had been together 17 years. We lived in a quiet subdivision north of Houston where every lawn looked professionally trimmed and every driveway had at least one oversized SUV parked in it. We had backyard cookouts on Sundays. We hosted neighbors during football season. We smiled in Christmas photos that ended up taped to refrigerators all over the county. From the outside, we looked solid, stable, boring in the safest possible way. But stability can hide rot better than chaos ever could. Looking back now, I think the first crack appeared in the smallest moments. Melissa started taking her phone everywhere. Bathroom, laundry, room, even out to the mailbox. Face down on every table. Password changed overnight. Then came the business dinners. More late nights. More conferences. More explanations that sounded rehearsed before they even left her mouth. Every time I asked if something was wrong, she'd smile like I was a child asking if monsters were real. You're overthinking again, Ethan. She said it so casually, so smoothly, like concern itself was the problem. The strange thing about gaslighting isn't that it makes you believe lies. It makes you stop trusting your own instincts. I started questioning everything. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe work stress was getting to me. Maybe middle age just turns men suspicious and tired. But then little details started stacking up like evidence no one wanted to file. A restaurant charge in the Woodlands when she claimed she was downtown. Perfume I didn't recognize lingering inside her car. A text notification that flashed Ryan's name before disappearing almost instantly. She told me Ryan was just a client. Honestly, Ethan, you're acting insecure. That word stayed with me longer than I admitted. Insecure. I'd spent 17 years paying mortgages, replacing water heaters, sitting through family holidays with relatives I could barely tolerate, believing loyalty looked like consistency. Suddenly, I felt like a stranger in my own house. The camera system happened almost by accident. A few packages got stolen off porches in our neighborhood, and everyone started installing security systems. Doorbell cameras, motion lights, garage sensors. Melissa even encouraged it. Honestly, it's smart, she said one night while scrolling through her phone on the couch. People are crazy now. So I installed cameras around the property myself over one long Saturday. Driveway, front porch, garage, backyard. Nothing fancy. Just enough coverage to check alerts from my phone while I traveled for work. Melissa barely noticed them after the first week. Most people stop seeing cameras once they become part of the walls. But cameras see everything, especially the things people think happen in private. Around midnight that Tuesday, my phone buzzed while I sat in that motel. Room 20 miles from home, pretending to be at a systems conference in Austin. Motion detected. Garage entry. I remember opening the app with the same numb feeling you get before a doctor reads test results out loud. Somewhere deep down, maybe I already knew. Maybe that's why my hands didn't shake. Maybe betrayal doesn't arrive all at once. Maybe it leaks slowly into a marriage until one night you finally see it standing under fluorescent light in perfect high definition. I did not confront her that night. That is the part people never understand when betrayal stories get told over beers or family dinners. Everyone imagines rage, shouting, slamming doors. But real betrayal does not hit like fire. It hits like winter. Quiet, slow, heavy enough to freeze your thoughts before you can even move. I sat there in that motel room with the glow of my laptop painting the walls blue and watched the footage 3 more times. Same garage door, same silver Lexus, same easy smile on Melissa's face as Ryan followed her inside my house like he belonged there. At 2:21 a.m., the downstairs kitchen light came on. At 2:34, the living room lamp turned off. Then nothing. Just silence and timestamps crawling across the corner of the screen while the motel air conditioner rattled like loose bones in the wall. Outside, 18-wheelers rolled down Interstate 45 carrying freight through the dark Texas night while my marriage quietly bled out 20 miles away. I remember staring at the reflection of my own face in the laptop screen and thinking how ordinary I looked. 43 years old, slight gray around the temples, tired eyes, the face of a man who paid property taxes on time and rotated his truck tires every 6,000 miles. Nothing about me looked like someone whose life had just split open. Maybe that is the dangerous thing about betrayal. It happens inside normal rooms, kitchens, garages, hallways with family photos hanging on the walls. The next morning, Melissa texted me at exactly 7:12. Hope the conference is going well. Love you. I stared at the message while sitting in the motel parking lot drinking burnt gas station coffee that tasted like chemicals and regret. 3 simple words. Love you. Funny how language can survive long after truth dies. I typed back, conference is exhausting. Probably home tomorrow night. Then I put the phone face down and watched condensation slide down the side of the coffee cup. My hand stayed steady. That surprised me most. No shaking. No panic. Just this strange hollow calm spreading through my chest like my body already knew survival depended on silence. I drove around Houston for hours that day without really seeing any of it. Strip malls, car washes, fast food signs glowing in the heat. Every intersection looked familiar and completely foreign at the same time. Around noon, I parked outside a Home Depot because I needed somewhere normal to exist for a minute. Inside, people pushed carts full of lumber and paint cans beneath fluorescent lights while country music played overhead. A young couple argued about backsplash tile near the kitchen aisle. An old man compared leaf blowers like nothing in the world had changed. That is the strange part about personal disasters. The world keeps moving anyway. I wandered through the security section longer than I needed to. Motion sensors, smart locks, camera mounts, rows of tiny machines designed to catch people and lies. I almost laughed standing there. Months ago, I thought installing cameras meant protecting my house from strangers. Turns out the danger already had keys to the front door. Melissa called me around 3 in the afternoon. Her voice sounded light, relaxed. How is Austin? She asked. Austin, not even the right city. I leaned back inside my truck and listened to traffic hum across the parking lot. Long meetings, I said calmly. I will be glad when it is over. She laughed softly. Well, do not overwork yourself again. You always get paranoid when you are stressed. There it was again. Paranoid. Overthinking. Insecure. The vocabulary of someone trying to rewrite another person's reality one sentence at a time. I realized then that the affair was only half the betrayal. The other half was watching someone slowly train you not to trust your own eyes. After we hung up, I opened the security app again. Not because I needed proof anymore. I already had that. No, I opened it because some part of me still hoped to find a different explanation hidden somewhere between the timestamps. But cameras are brutally honest things. They do not care about feelings. They do not soften details to protect you. They simply record what happened while the rest of us waste time arguing with reality. That night, I checked into another motel farther north near the Woodlands and bought a cheap external hard drive from a Walmart off the highway. I sat on the edge of the bed, transferring footage files one by one while the evening news played quietly in the background. Every progress bar felt like another nail sealing something shut. By midnight, I had folders organized by date and timestamp. Garage footage, driveway footage, entry alerts. I labeled everything carefully because systems engineers survive chaos by building order around it. Somewhere around 1 in the morning, I finally stopped moving and listened to the silence in the room. Then my phone buzzed again. Motion detected. Garage entry. I froze the moment the notification appeared on my screen. Motion detected. Garage entry. 12:07 a.m. The motel room suddenly felt smaller, the stale air heavier against my chest. Outside, rain tapped softly against the window while red neon from the vacancy sign leaked through the curtains in uneven flashes. I sat there on the edge of the bed with my laptop open, staring at the alert like it might change if I waited long enough. It did not. I opened the camera feed slowly this time. Not because I was afraid of what I would see. That fear was already gone. What remained was something colder. Acceptance, maybe. Or the numbness that comes after your mind finally stops arguing with reality. The garage camera flickered alive. Melissa's Lexus rolled in first, headlights sweeping across storage bins and old golf clubs stacked against the wall. The engine shut off. A few seconds later, another vehicle pulled into frame behind her. Black SUV. Same one. Ryan stepped out carrying a small overnight bag like he had done this enough times to know exactly what to bring. Melissa laughed at something he said before she touched his arm and glanced toward the kitchen door leading into the house. Casual, comfortable, familiar. That was the part that cut deepest. Nothing about them looked nervous anymore. People are careful during mistakes. They only become relaxed inside routines. I watched Melissa unlock the inside door while Ryan stood close beside her. She rested her hand against his chest for half a second before they disappeared into the house together. Then the feed went quiet again. Empty garage. Closed door. Silence. I sat motionless in that motel room listening to the low hum of the air conditioner and realized I could not remember the last time my wife touched me that casually. Funny what betrayal makes you notice. Tiny things. Missing things. The absence of ordinary affection becomes louder than screaming ever could. Around 1 in the morning, I pulled up older footage files and started going backward through the timeline. Day after day, week after week. At first it was little things. Ryan's SUV parked outside for 10 minutes while I was supposedly working late downtown. Melissa stepping onto the driveway smiling at text messages she immediately deleted afterward. A quick hug near the garage that lasted slightly too long to be innocent, but short enough to explain away if anyone asked. Looking back now, the affair had probably been happening for months before I ever stopped trusting her explanations. The footage told a story words never could. Patterns emerged. Tuesdays, Thursdays, nights before my early morning meetings. Melissa always parked inside the garage afterward instead of leaving her car in the driveway like she used to. Little adjustments. Little precautions. The kind people make when lies slowly become part of daily life. By 2:30 in the morning, my eyes burned from staring at timestamps and shadows. I closed the laptop and leaned back against the motel wall. The ceiling above me had a yellow water stain spreading near the vent, and for some reason I could not stop looking at it. 17 years together. One mortgage. One dog buried in the backyard 3 summers ago. Family vacations in Gulf Shores. Christmas lights tangled in storage bins every December. Thousands of ordinary moments stacked together like bricks. And somehow all of it now felt fragile enough to collapse under the weight of security footage and late-night lies. My phone buzzed again around 3. Melissa. I almost ignored it. But something in me wanted to hear her voice now that I knew what it sounded like when mixed with deception. "Hey, stranger," she said softly the second I answered. Her tone was warm, relaxed, almost sleepy. I glanced at the laptop beside me, where the frozen camera frame still showed Ryan's SUV inside my garage, less than 30 feet from our kitchen. "You still awake?" she asked. "Could not sleep," I answered carefully. There was a pause. Soft movement on her end of the line. Maybe bedsheets. Maybe footsteps. Then she laughed quietly. "You work too much, Ethan. Seriously, your brain never shuts off." There it was again. The same script. Stress. Paranoia. Overthinking. She spoke like my instincts were symptoms instead of warnings. I closed my eyes and listened to her breathing through the phone while another man stood somewhere inside my house. "I will be home tomorrow night," I finally said. Another pause. Tiny. Almost invisible. But it was there. "Good," she replied quickly. "I miss you." Those words used to mean safety to me. Home. Loyalty. Now they sounded rehearsed. Polished smooth from overuse like stones carried too long in someone's pocket. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time before opening the footage one more time. The kitchen camera showed only darkness now. No movement. No sound. Just the faint blue glow of the microwave clock reflecting against empty countertops. The house looked peaceful. That was the cruelest part. Betrayal rarely looks dramatic while it is happening. Most of the time it hides inside perfectly ordinary rooms. I drove home the next evening just before sunset with my overnight bag sitting untouched in the passenger seat beside me. Traffic crawled along Highway 290 while Houston heat shimmered above the asphalt in waves. Every red light gave me another few seconds to think about turning around. Not because I wanted to save the marriage anymore. That illusion was already dead. No, I kept thinking about how strange it would feel walking back into a house that no longer belonged to the version of my life I thought I had. The neighborhood looked exactly the same when I pulled in. Kids riding bikes. Sprinklers ticking across green lawns. Someone grilling burgers 3 houses down while country music drifted through the warm evening air. Ordinary suburbia. The kind of place where people wave from driveways and pretend bad things only happen somewhere else. Melissa's Lexus sat parked neatly in the garage when I stepped inside. The kitchen smelled faintly like lemon cleaner and rosemary chicken. She stood at the counter pouring wine into 2 glasses wearing jeans and a loose cream sweater like we were still living inside a normal Tuesday evening. There he is, she smiled. Calm. Effortless. She walked over and kissed my cheek softly before taking my bag from my hand. I remember thinking how terrifyingly good people become at pretending once they stop respecting the truth. Long trip, she asked. Long enough, I answered. My voice sounded steady even to me. That surprised me again. Somewhere along the last 48 hours, anger had turned into observation. I noticed everything now. The faint smell of Ryan's cologne still lingering beneath the candles in the living room. 2 wine glasses already sitting in the dishwasher before dinner even started. A throw blanket folded neatly across the couch that had been crumpled on the camera footage the night before. Tiny details. Tiny ghosts left behind by dishonesty. Melissa kept talking while she plated dinner. Something about a difficult client. Something about the market slowing down near Katie. Her words floated through the kitchen without really landing anywhere inside me. Across from her, I cut chicken into careful pieces and watched the woman I had spent 17 years loving lie directly to my face with perfect eye contact. You seem quiet, she finally said. I shrugged lightly. Just tired. She studied me for half a second longer than normal. That tiny pause again. People always reveal themselves in pauses. You are not still stressed about us, are you? She asked softly. Ethan, seriously, you have to stop spiraling. Every time something feels off. Spiraling. Another new word added to the collection. I almost admired how polished her script had become. Any concern I raised automatically transformed into weakness. Any instinct became paranoia. It was like living inside a courtroom where she controlled both sides of the argument. Maybe you are right, I said calmly. And for the first time in months, Melissa visibly relaxed. That was the moment I understood something important. Liars do not fear accusations nearly as much as they fear silence. After dinner, she disappeared upstairs for a shower while I loaded the dishwasher beneath soft yellow kitchen lights. The house hummed quietly around me. Refrigerator motor. Air vent. Water pipes inside the walls. Sounds I had heard for years without noticing. My phone sat in my pocket with the security app still installed. Still recording. Still watching. I dried my hands slowly and opened the garage footage from earlier that afternoon. At 1:17 p.m., while I was supposedly driving back from Austin, Ryan's SUV had pulled into my driveway again. 12 minutes. That was all. Melissa met him outside near the garage. No kiss this time. Just a folded piece of paper exchanged between them before he drove away. I replayed the clip twice while standing alone in my own kitchen. Something about the paper bothered me. It looked official. Business-sized envelope. Ryan pointed toward the house while talking. Melissa crossed her arms tightly afterward, nervous energy replacing her usual confidence for the first time since I started watching the footage. Upstairs, water ran through the shower pipes while I stared at frozen frames on my phone screen. Suddenly, the affair felt larger than hidden dinners and lies. Something else moved underneath it now. Something planned. Melissa came downstairs 20 minutes later with damp hair and one of my old college sweatshirts hanging loosely off her shoulders. Years ago, that sight used to make home feel safe. Now it felt staged. Movie? She asked casually while curling beside me on the couch. I could still smell shampoo and expensive perfume mixing together in the warm living room air. Sure, I answered. She rested her head lightly against my shoulder while some forgettable streaming show played across the television. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere far off across the Texas sky. I sat perfectly still beside my wife, while secretly watching garage footage from earlier that same day on the phone hidden in my hand beneath the blanket. Two different realities existed inches apart on that couch. In one reality, we looked like a married couple settling into another quiet suburban evening. In the other, I already knew another man had memorized the sound of my garage door opening. Sleep stopped feeling normal after that night. I still went to bed beside Melissa every evening. I still brushed my teeth in the same bathroom and set my alarm for 6:30 every morning like nothing had changed. But real sleep needs peace, and peace had quietly moved out of our house weeks before I realized it. Around 2 in the morning, I would usually wake up and stare into darkness while the ceiling fan rotated slowly overhead. Melissa slept beside me, breathing soft and steady, one arm resting across the blanket like the picture of complete innocence. Sometimes she even reached for me in her sleep out of habit, and every time it happened my chest tightened in ways anger never could explain. One Thursday night, rain rolled across Houston hard enough to shake the windows. The weather alert buzzed across my phone around midnight, while lightning flashed pale blue through the curtains. Melissa was downstairs saying she could not sleep and wanted tea. I stayed in bed for a minute listening to cabinet doors open softly below me. Then my security app vibrated. Motion detected. Driveway camera. I opened the feed immediately. Ryan's SUV sat parked at the curb with headlights off in the middle of the storm, wipers moving slowly through the rain. My stomach dropped, even though part of me expected it already. The garage camera showed Melissa standing just inside the side entrance wearing gray sweatpants and one of my old university hoodies. She cracked the door open slightly and stepped outside beneath the covered awning while rain hammered against the driveway around them. Ryan handed her another envelope, larger this time. Melissa looked nervous again, constantly glancing toward the house. Then Ryan touched her face gently with one hand before kissing her forehead. It was not dramatic, not reckless. Somehow that made it worse. Their comfort with each other felt old, established, like I had arrived late to a story that had already been unfolding for months. I sat upright in bed staring at the footage while thunder rolled across the neighborhood. Downstairs, through the open stairwell, I could hear Melissa moving around in my kitchen less than 20 feet away from where I watched her lie in real time. A few minutes later, she came back upstairs carrying a mug of chamomile tea. "Storm is crazy tonight," she said softly while climbing into bed beside me. Her hair smelled like vanilla shampoo and rainwater. I locked my phone screen before she could see the footage still frozen beneath my hand. "Yeah," I answered quietly. "Pretty loud." She smiled faintly and rested against the headboard sipping tea while lightning flashed outside. Then she looked over at me carefully. "You have been acting distant lately." There was concern in her voice now, or at least a convincing imitation of it. "Work," I replied. "Just tired." She studied me for another second before nodding slowly. "I worry about you sometimes, Ethan. You disappear into your own head. Funny thing about manipulation. The best versions always sound compassionate." Melissa had gotten good at turning my instincts into emotional instability. Good enough that part of me still questioned myself, sometimes even while staring directly at evidence. The next afternoon, I left work early and drove downtown Houston instead of heading home. Ryan Brooks Realty occupied the top floor of a glass office building near Memorial City. Expensive lobby. Valet parking. White marble floors polished, so clean they reflected ceiling lights like water. I sat across the street inside my truck for almost 40 minutes watching people move through revolving doors while windshield wipers pushed light drizzle aside. Around 4:30, Ryan finally appeared outside wearing a navy suit with his sleeves rolled halfway up his forearms. Relaxed. Confident. The kind of man who smiled easily because life had never taught him caution. He stood under the awning laughing into his phone before climbing into the same black SUV I had watched on my security footage for weeks. I expected to feel rage seeing him in person. Instead, I felt something stranger. Disappointment, maybe. Not in him. Men like Ryan exist everywhere. Smooth talkers chasing excitement through other people's marriages. No, the disappointment lived inside realizing Melissa had traded 17 years of loyalty for something this shallow. That evening, I checked our joint credit card statements for the first time in months. Restaurants in Sugar Land Melissa never mentioned. Hotel charges near the Galleria listed during supposed networking weekends. Expensive wine bars downtown on nights. She claimed she was staying with friends. Small details again. Small financial fingerprints hidden beneath ordinary life. I exported every statement into a private folder on my laptop and labeled them carefully beside the security footage. Dates, times, locations, patterns. Systems engineers survive by tracking patterns. Around midnight, Melissa fell asleep on the couch, while some reality show played softly in the background. I sat nearby pretending to answer work emails while the television light flickered across her face. She looked peaceful there beneath the blanket. Familiar. Human. For one dangerous second, I almost wanted to wake her up and ask why. Not accuse. Not yell. Just ask how someone slowly crosses the distance between ordinary marriage and secret midnight meetings without stopping themselves somewhere along the way. But then my phone buzzed again. Motion detected. Backyard camera. And suddenly, I realized the cameras were no longer protecting my home. They were documenting the collapse of it. The backyard alert turned out to be nothing more than our golden retriever wandering near the fence line at 1:30 in the morning. I watched the footage twice anyway because once suspicion enters your bloodstream, every shadow starts looking guilty. The next few days settled into a strange routine that felt almost mechanical. Melissa kept performing the role of devoted wife while I quietly collected evidence inside the same house where we still shared coffee every morning. I started noticing how much of marriage depends on repetition. Same mugs, same garage click at 6:45, same grocery lists on the refrigerator. Habit can make two strangers look deeply in love from the outside. One Saturday afternoon, Melissa suggested we drive out to Cyprus for lunch at a barbecue place we used to love years ago. The kind with wooden picnic tables and ceiling fans spinning lazily above sticky floors. We had gone there after signing the papers on our first house 17 years earlier. Back then, we sat shoulder to shoulder in a booth planning paint colors and future vacations while smoke from the pit drifted through the open windows. Now we sat across from each other beneath the same neon beer signs, while silence filled every gap between conversations. Melissa smiled often during lunch. Too often. She kept touching my hand lightly across the table like she was trying to reassure herself more than me. I feel like we have both been disconnected lately, she admitted while stirring iced tea with a straw. Maybe we need to spend more time together. I looked at her carefully. Sunlight filtered through the blinds across her face, while country music hummed softly through the restaurant speakers. Anyone watching us would have seen a middle-aged couple trying to reconnect after busy schedules. They would never imagine I had security footage sitting on an encrypted hard drive inside my truck showing another man walking through my garage after midnight. Maybe, I answered calmly. Melissa nodded with visible relief. That reaction stayed with me the rest of the day. Relief. Not guilt. Not remorse. Relief that I still appeared manageable. Predictable. Under control. That night, she fell asleep early upstairs while I sat alone in my office reviewing old financial records beneath the pale glow of dual computer monitors. The deeper I looked, the more patterns emerged. Hotel charges always appeared on weekdays when I traveled for work. Expensive restaurants lined up perfectly with Melissa's supposed networking events. Then I found something that made my chest tighten. Wire transfers. Small amounts at first. $2,000. $3,000. Then larger ones spread across several months into an account I did not recognize. Melissa had always handled most of our day-to-day household budgeting because she enjoyed spreadsheets and organization. I trusted her completely with it for years. Trust really is the most dangerous shortcut people take in marriage. I traced the account information through transaction history until one name finally appeared attached to a payment reference. RB Property Holdings. Ryan Brooks. I leaned back slowly in my chair while the office clock ticked against the wall. Suddenly, the envelopes on the driveway footage made sense. This was no longer just an affair hiding inside emotional emptiness and late-night lies. Money was moving now. Quietly. Carefully. My phone buzzed around 11:30. Melissa texted from upstairs. Coming to bed. I stared at the message while financial statements remained open across my monitors like evidence laid out inside a courtroom. In a minute, I replied. Then I opened the security app again out of pure instinct. Garage camera. Empty. Driveway camera. Empty. Living room camera. Dark. But when I clicked the kitchen feed, something stopped me cold. Melissa stood downstairs alone, wearing a white t-shirt and sweatpants with her phone pressed tightly against her ear. The timestamp read 11:34. I turned up the audio feed slightly through my headphones. Her voice came through soft and urgent. He is starting to notice things. Silence on the other end. Then Melissa again. No, he still thinks it is stress mostly. I told you I can handle it. My throat went dry. I sat frozen inside my office chair listening to my wife discuss me like a problem needing management. We just need more time, she whispered. The refinance has to close first. Refinance. The word hit harder than I expected. Another puzzle piece sliding into place. Ryan said something I could not fully hear. Melissa glanced toward the staircase nervously before lowering her voice further. I know, but if he starts digging through accounts, everything gets complicated. Everything. Not us. Not the marriage. Everything. I muted the feed and stared at the dark office window reflecting my own face back at me. Outside, warm Texas wind rattled tree branches against the siding, while somewhere upstairs my wife prepared to crawl back into bed beside me after secretly discussing financial plans with another man. That was the moment something inside me finally hardened completely. Affairs can sometimes grow out of loneliness or weakness or selfishness. But planning a future while quietly draining trust and money from the person sleeping beside you feels different. Colder. More deliberate. I shut down the monitor slowly and reached for my phone. The next morning I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer downtown. The lawyer's office sat on the 22nd floor of a downtown Houston building overlooking traffic crawling through gray morning rain. Everything inside smelled like leather chairs, printer toner, and expensive coffee. Quiet success. The kind built from other people's broken lives. Her name was Denise Holloway, mid-50s, sharp navy suit, calm eyes that looked like they had already heard every possible version of betrayal before I walked through her door. I handed her the external hard drive first without saying much. Then I slid printed bank statements across the desk beside it. Denise listened carefully while I explained the security footage, the transfers, the late-night phone call downstairs in my kitchen. She never interrupted. Never gave fake sympathy. Just took notes with slow, measured movements while rain streaked across the windows behind her. When I finally stopped talking, the office felt strangely silent. Denise folded her hands together and looked directly at me. Do not confront her yet, she said evenly. Not until we understand exactly how deep the financial side goes. Financial side. Hearing the affair reduced to legal language somehow made it feel even colder. More real. Denise explained how hidden transfers, refinancing discussions, and undisclosed accounts could complicate everything if handled incorrectly. She advised me to quietly gather complete records first. Tax returns, mortgage documents, retirement accounts, property agreements. Right now your advantage is information, she said calmly. She still believes you are emotionally reacting. Do not show her otherwise. I nodded slowly while downtown traffic moved like rivers of red brake lights beneath the storm outside. What if she realizes I know? I asked quietly. Denise leaned back slightly in her chair. Then she changes strategy. Strategy. Not marriage. Not heartbreak. Strategy. By the time I left her office, the rain had stopped and Houston humidity wrapped around the streets like warm fog. I sat inside my truck for almost 10 minutes staring at the steering wheel before turning the engine on. Somewhere along the last few weeks, my life had transformed into something that felt less like a relationship and more like an investigation. Every conversation with Melissa now carried hidden layers underneath it. Every smile felt edited before delivery. That evening, she greeted me at the door wearing yoga pants and one of those oversized sweaters she always bought every fall from boutique stores near the Woodlands. You are home early, she smiled while chopping vegetables in the kitchen. I kissed her lightly on the cheek out of instinct more than affection. Meetings got canceled. Good, she said quickly. I was thinking maybe we should take a trip somewhere soon. Just us. I almost laughed hearing it. Weeks earlier, I would have believed that suggestion meant reconnection. Now it sounded like maintenance. Damage control wrapped in vacation planning. During dinner, Melissa talked about beach rentals in Florida while I quietly watched her phone buzz twice face down beside her plate. She never checked it openly anymore. That alone told me enough. Around 9:30, she said she was exhausted and headed upstairs early with a glass of wine. I waited exactly 15 minutes before opening the security app again. Bedroom camera was the only one I never installed. Some line inside me still considered that too invasive when I first built the system. Funny how morality survives right up until trust dies. At 10:07 p.m., the kitchen feed activated. Melissa moved quietly downstairs wearing silk pajama pants and carrying her phone. She checked the alarm panel near the garage entrance before unlocking the back patio door. Then she stepped outside into darkness. I switched to the backyard camera. Warm night air moved through the trees while patio lights cast soft yellow shadows across the grass. Ryan stood near the fence wearing jeans and a black quarter-zip sweater. Melissa walked straight into his arms like she had rehearsed the distance 100 times before. They stayed there talking quietly beneath the patio lights while cicadas buzzed through the humid Texas night. No panic, no urgency, just two people comfortable inside a secret they believed was still protected. I muted the audio and stared at the footage without blinking. The emotional part of betrayal had started fading by then. What replaced it was clarity. The same clarity you feel during severe storms after the first tornado siren stops sounding and reality settles into simple survival decisions. Melissa laughed softly at something Ryan said before handing him a folder from beneath her sweater. Documents. More paperwork. Ryan flipped through pages quickly while pointing toward the house again. Then Melissa shook her head sharply. Even from silent footage, I could see tension building between them. Ryan grabbed her wrist gently, stopping her from walking away. They argued quietly for another minute before Melissa finally stepped back toward the patio door. Ryan remained near the fence watching her disappear inside my house. I replayed that section 3 times. The folder bothered me. The tension bothered me more. Whatever they planned together no longer looked smooth. Cracks were forming. Around midnight, Melissa climbed back into bed beside me, smelling faintly like wine and night air. "Still awake?" she whispered into darkness. "Could not sleep," I answered. She rested one hand lightly against my chest. Familiar gesture. Familiar warmth. But now all I could think about was another man standing beneath my patio lights holding documents connected to my finances while my wife quietly negotiated pieces of our future behind my back. I stared into darkness, listening to Melissa breathe beside me, and realized something important. She still believed she was controlling the story. She had no idea the cameras had already recorded the ending. The following week felt like living beside a controlled demolition that only I could see. From the outside, everything still looked intact. Melissa continued posting smiling photos from coffee shops and yoga classes. We still ate dinner together 3 nights that week. We still stood side by side at the grocery store comparing pasta sauces beneath fluorescent lights while country music played softly overhead. But underneath those ordinary moments, legal documents were already moving quietly through downtown offices. Denise worked fast. By Tuesday afternoon, I had opened a separate private account under my name only and redirected future direct deposits from my consulting contracts. By Wednesday, she had filed requests for financial disclosure preparations without formally serving anything yet. Quiet preparation creates leverage, she explained during one late afternoon call while I sat in my truck outside the office parking garage. Leverage. Another cold word replacing emotions that used to define marriage. I spent evenings gathering paperwork after Melissa fell asleep. Mortgage records. Retirement accounts. Tax returns going back 7 years. Every document slid into labeled folders across my office desk, while the house remained silent around me. Sometimes I would hear Melissa laughing softly downstairs while texting someone on the couch, and the sound no longer hurt the way it once did. Pain changes shape when it lasts long enough. At first, betrayal feels sharp, personal. Eventually, it becomes procedural. One Thursday evening, Melissa suggested inviting neighbors over for drinks that weekend. "People have been asking why we disappeared lately." She laughed lightly while folding laundry in the bedroom. I looked up from my laptop. "Sounds good." That answer seemed to relax her instantly. Again, the relief. Melissa only appeared calm when I behaved predictable. I think she believed emotional men are easy to control because they react loudly. What she never understood is that silence can hide far more dangerous decisions. Friday afternoon, Denise called again while I sat inside my office pretending to review software reports. "We found something else," she said carefully. My stomach tightened immediately. Denise explained that one of the refinancing applications connected to our property listed projected liquidation estimates tied to my retirement portfolio. Melissa had submitted preliminary financial disclosures without my knowledge using copied account data. She was preparing scenarios, Denise said calmly. Likely planning separation outcomes before discussing anything with you. Separation outcomes. I stared through the office window at traffic moving below while those words settled into my chest. Melissa had not simply fallen into an affair. She had been planning exits, calculating possibilities, quietly building future versions of her life while still sleeping beside me every night. There is more, Denise continued. Ryan Brooks appears connected to the refinancing company through a private investment partnership. Of course he was. Suddenly, every envelope, every late-night conversation, every backyard meeting snapped together into one ugly, clear picture. This was never just romance hidden beneath emotional confusion. Money sat underneath all of it like a second heartbeat. That evening I came home just before sunset. Melissa stood in the kitchen arranging flowers inside a glass vase while soft jazz played from the speaker near the dining room. She smiled warmly the second I walked through the door. Perfect timing, she said. I made reservations for us tomorrow night. I loosened my tie slowly while watching her across the counter. The same woman who once cried in my arms after her father's surgery now calmly discussed dinner reservations while secretly planning financial separation strategies behind my back. Human beings really are terrifying when they decide comfort matters more than honesty. That sounds nice, I answered quietly. Melissa walked over and adjusted my collar gently. I miss us, she whispered. The words almost made me laugh. Not because they were cruel, because part of her probably believed them. People convince themselves of strange things when they need to protect their own reflection. Later that night, she fell asleep early with a movie still playing quietly upstairs. Around midnight, I sat alone in the living room reviewing camera footage one final time. Weeks of recordings stretched across the timeline like evidence collected after a slow, invisible storm. Garage entries, patio conversations, financial exchanges, lies disguised as ordinary evenings. I paused one clip from 3 nights earlier. Melissa stood beneath the patio lights, speaking urgently to Ryan while warm wind moved through the trees behind them. Ryan handed her another folder before touching her face gently. Melissa looked scared in that moment. Not guilty. Scared. I realized then that whatever future they imagined together was starting to crack under pressure too. Secrets always rot eventually. That is the problem with building relationships inside deception. Trust never fully exists there either. My phone buzzed softly against the coffee table. New email from Denise. Attached draft documents waited beneath the subject line. Petition for dissolution of marriage. I opened the file slowly while the television flickered muted blue light across the empty room. 17 years reduced into legal language and signature lines. Outside, neighborhood porch lights glowed quietly beneath humid Texas darkness, while sprinklers clicked across distant lawns. Everything looked peaceful. That was the strange part. Most lives do not explode all at once. Sometimes they collapse quietly beneath recessed lighting and framed family photos, while one person sits alone reviewing security footage no one else knows exists. Upstairs, Melissa slept peacefully, believing she still controlled the timeline. She had no idea tomorrow night every illusion inside this house was about to end. Saturday evening arrived warm and heavy with the kind of Texas humidity that makes porch lights glow soft around the edges. Melissa spent nearly an hour getting ready upstairs while I sat alone in the kitchen listening to ice settle inside a glass of bourbon. Through the hallway mirror, I could see her moving back and forth between the bedroom and bathroom, carefully adjusting earrings, fixing makeup, choosing perfume. Watching her prepare for our dinner reservation felt surreal, knowing legal papers already existed with both our names typed neatly across the top. You look nice tonight. She smiled when she finally came downstairs wearing a dark green dress I had bought her 3 Christmases earlier. I looked up slowly from my drink. So do you? And she did. That was the strange tragedy of it all. Betrayal does not always arrive wearing cruelty on its face. Sometimes it still looks exactly like the person you once trusted most. The restaurant sat near Market Street in the Woodlands, all low lighting and polished wood with soft jazz drifting through hidden ceiling speakers. Couples laughed over wine glasses while waiters moved between tables carrying steaks on black iron skillets. From the outside, we probably looked like every other middle-aged suburban couple trying to reconnect after years of busy schedules and emotional distance. Melissa reached for my hand twice during dinner. She smiled often, asked about work, told stories about clients. Perfectly measured warmth. Halfway through dessert, she leaned forward slightly and sighed. I feel like we are finally getting back to normal. Normal. The word almost echoed inside my chest. I stirred melting ice slowly through my whiskey and looked at the woman across from me. What if normal was never real? I asked quietly. Melissa blinked once, caught off guard for the first time all evening. Then she laughed softly. There you go again. That tone. Light. Gentle. Controlled. The same voice she always used whenever she needed to turn instincts into insecurity. Ethan, you spend too much time inside your own head sometimes. I nodded slowly like I accepted the correction. Maybe. Relief flickered across her face again. Tiny. Quick. But visible. She still believed she could steer the conversation away from danger if she stayed calm enough. We drove home beneath quiet suburban streetlights while soft rain misted across the windshield. Melissa rested one hand lightly on the center console, beside me, like we were still sharing the same future. Back at the house, she kicked off her heels near the entryway and smiled tiredly. I'm going to change into something comfortable. Actually, I said evenly. Can you stay down here for a minute? Something in my voice made her pause. Not fear exactly. More confusion. Sure, she answered carefully. The living room lamps cast warm yellow light across framed family photos lining the shelves behind her. Beach vacations. Christmas mornings. 17 years frozen into smiling moments. I picked up the remote control from the coffee table and muted the television completely. Silence settled across the room. Melissa crossed her arms lightly. What is going on? I looked at her for several long seconds before speaking. I gave you a lot of chances to tell me the truth. Her expression shifted almost invisibly. Defensive systems activating behind her eyes. Truth about what? She asked softly. There it was. The final performance. I nodded once toward the television. Sit down. Melissa hesitated but slowly lowered herself onto the couch. Rain tapped gently against the windows while I connected my laptop to the television screen. The security footage appeared instantly. Timestamp glowing white in the corner. Garage camera. 2:13 a.m. Melissa stared at the screen without breathing. Ryan's SUV rolled into frame. Then her own face appeared beneath the floodlight, stepping toward him in perfect clarity. No arguing. No confusion. No room left for manipulation. Just truth captured in high-definition silence. For a few seconds, the only sound in the entire room came from rain against glass and the faint hum of the television speakers. Melissa's face drained of color slowly as more footage played. Patio conversations. Envelopes exchanged beneath outdoor lights. Midnight meetings. Kitchen phone calls discussing refinance plans and hidden accounts. Every lie carefully preserved by cameras she forgot existed. Ethan, she whispered finally, but the words collapsed before finishing. I kept my voice calm. That surprised even me. For months you told me I was paranoid. Another clip played silently across the screen. Ryan touching her face beside my backyard fence. You made me question my own instincts. Melissa shook her head quickly now, panic. Finally breaking through her composure. It is not what you think. I almost smiled hearing it because there was nothing left to think anymore. Cameras remove imagination from betrayal. They leave only facts. I reached beside me and placed the printed divorce papers quietly on the coffee table between us. Melissa stared at them like they belonged to someone else's life. You were planning exits and refinance deals while sleeping beside me, I said evenly. You stopped being honest with me long before you stopped loving me. Tears filled her eyes then. Real ones this time. But strangely, by that point, I felt no satisfaction watching her finally break apart. Just exhaustion. The kind that settles into a man after carrying confusion for too long. Outside, rain continued falling softly across quiet suburban streets while inside our living room, 17 years of marriage ended beneath the glow of a security camera timestamp. For months, Melissa controlled the story with words. In the end, the cameras told mine.